G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of the Purple Coloured Glasses. In this episode I'll be going through my tips for round 21, how I fared, and Freo's performance up against the Doggies. So first game, Melbourne against Collingwood, and I've been betting against the Pies for a few weeks now, and egg on my face again. Melbourne had so many opportunities in this game, and really should have been up by 30 or 40 points at half time. But credit to Collingwood, that never say die attitude, and they just came back and they were very efficient in front of goals. When they had an opportunity, they put it through the big sticks. And I think guys like Max Gawn will be reflecting on a few easy set shots from 15 metres out, almost directly in front, that they missed in a margin where you only lose by 7 points. So not too worried really about the D's game overall. I think it's getting picked apart a bit. If 65 inside 50s, a few missable, easy missed shots in front of goal, they kick those, they win this game. And it really just goes to prove that bad kicking is bad football. And they left the door open for Collingwood, and Collingwood still needed to do all the work to come back from that margin, and played very well to get there. So tip my hat to Collingwood. Shout out to Coleman, who keeps reminding me how well Collingwood have been going. And I think I'll have to just keep tipping Collingwood for the rest of the year until the grand final. We all know what happens, Collingwood fans, on grand final day. So another grand final for the Pies. Will they win it this year? Hawthorn against Gold Coast at Utahs. So sort of like the end of this game. Can't really comment on it too much. It looked like Gold Coast forwards were really well held. Hawks just got them, and that was that venue pick I went with. And there's probably been a couple of games this year where Gold Coast sort of need to go away from home against that bottom range. Not like the bottom four teams, but sort of between 9 and 14, where they really should win. So they went away to the Bombers earlier in the year, got done. Gone away to Hawthorn, got done. These are the games that if they turn these ones into wins next year, they can look at finishing in the top 8. They don't need to go out and beat all the top sides. I think that's more if you're on track for a top 4 finish. But they haven't got it done against the teams a bit further down the ladder away from home. If they just build that into their game next year, I think they can make finals. GWS against Essendon. So this one hurts me because I ran my tips on Monday, and I chopped and changed them on Thursday for my video last week. And I actually had the Giants and I changed it. I think I actually had, if I didn't change my tips, I would have got a perfect rounder. I would have got 8 out of 9. So I went to the Bombers rather foolishly. I watched probably 2 or 3 quarters of this game, and yeah, the Giants just looked on. I could just sort of tell after a quarter or 2 that I thought they were going to get the job done. The signs were there early. Essendon didn't look as sharp as they have in previous weeks. I think they missed Caldwell to play that sort of accountable role. And yeah, the Giants didn't sort of taper off after half time or quarter time or something. They brought it for the entire game. So I should have stuck with my Giants tip, and sort of went against my style because I have been tipping a few venue games this year, and Essendon's record's not great at Giants Stadium, so I should have stuck with that. And then next up was Freo against the Doggies. Bit of a hard game to gauge, this one. I'm pretty stoked we got the win. Keeps our top 4 hopes alive. If the Pies actually do us a favour and beat Sydney, and we win our last 2 games, we're guaranteed top 4 just because of Brisbane playing Melbourne. So the door, we've really, got destiny in our own hands to a degree. We still got to get the job done against the Eagles and the Giants after this, but this was probably the toughest fixture out of those last 3 games. And why it was sort of hard to gauge is because Dogs really let us play our game, but then we really held up well in the second half as well. Bulldogs were sort of just letting us chip it through them, and I was wondering how much was us taking the kick on more aggressively, and just seeing that option and taking it straight away and being a bit more assertive and just quickly turning around and looking for an option. it wasn't like we were playing on heaps and handball training through them or anything like that. It was just methodical ball movement up through the field, through their zone, and ended up taking 18 marks inside 50, which is probably one of our highest returns this year. Rory Lobb kicked 4 goals from outside 50, probably missed 2 of the easier opportunities. Tabs kicked 2 before going off injured. Freddie with 3. So our forwards were good in front of the sticks. Felt we left a few goals out there as well. So Tucker missed one sort of directly in front after Nathan O'Driscoll found him. And we missed another one as well, I think, directly in front. Might have been one of Rory Lobb's opportunities. So there were a couple there where we could have actually blown the margin out a little bit and maybe given ourselves a bit more breathing room. But what I really liked was in that second half, the Doggies really came out of the blocks and were throwing everything at us. And every time they kicked a goal, we just found a way to respond. And something we haven't been able to do in recent weeks. And it's a good sign in an away game. And it had a bit of a finals atmosphere that we're likely going to have to play an away final at some stage. The only way we sort of don't is if we get a home elimination final and lose in the first week. Otherwise we're going to have to go away and play a final at some stage. And that's sort of what you have to do is you have to get a bit of a lead, keep the crowd quiet, and then every time the momentum might shift and the crowd are getting up and about, just a quick response. And we're really good at that. Thought Tucker came in and particularly in the first quarter, a lot of zip, a lot of energy. I think it says something to just bringing in some fresh players into the squad. He was tearing it up at Waffle. And I don't think the Waffle's necessarily at the same level as the AFL, but you're still building up that match conditioning and you're probably not getting banged up as much. You come in, you're a lot fresher, take one of the tireder guys out, and you just got a bit more zip around the ground, which I thought was good. And the same for O'Driscoll, just taking the game on, running past blokes and bombing him from outside 50. So I thought that was great. Sarong was really good as well. Broshaw's been probably quieter last month or so, and he's been racking up some decent disposal numbers in games, but he hasn't been as damaging. He had a really good set shot from 40 out or so, which was good. With the Tabs injury, bit of a concern for our forward structure. I think he and Lobb are playing a bit injured. They put Logue into the ruck to, I think, take away the tap work from Lobb. So I think he's still got a bit of a shoulder issue. They don't want to aggravate it by guys just jumping into him. And Tabs has had sort of back, calf, and I do wonder if he wasn't exerting himself as much in previous weeks because, he has a few niggles and was playing within himself, and he presented a lot better this game, got up the ground, got separation, was taking marks. And then he does a calf. So you kind of think, was he playing within himself the last couple of weeks just to not push himself too hard and get injured, particularly leading up to finals, because he'd be in that group that I think did last play in a final in that 2015 team. And blokes like him and Fife and Walters, Mundy, just sort of maybe he's just trying to think, maybe I can nurse myself through just to get into a final. But yeah, it's a shame to miss him for a few weeks. We'll find out how long that'll be for. Opens the door for Tracy or Sturt or Banfield. It'll be interesting to see how they'll actually go. I think they'll keep Logue doing that sort of ruck work and play Lobb as the permanent forward. He's our leading goal kicker this year, so I think that's the logic they'll stick with. So it'll be interesting how a team sort of shapes up, but it was good for us to sort of get back to the way we're playing. But I thought the Dogs really didn't press us as hard as Melbourne, Sydney, Richmond have in the previous weeks, and let us move the ball a lot easier. So I think we did improve, but I do think the Dogs did help us out a bit. It'll be interesting to see how we go against the Eagles and the Giants the next couple of weeks just to close out the year and end on a strong note. Then the Saturday night games, we had Geelong against Saints and Port against Richmond. So I didn't get to watch either of these games because I was out, but Geelong were being challenged by St Kilda for periods of this game and then sort of put their foot down in the second half and rested a bunch of players as well. So, yeah, fortress at GMHBA Stadium where the Dockers won. Maintained that fortress this year. I think they're pretty much home and hosed in regards to finishing in first place. And then Port Adelaide against Richmond. This is another one where I had it's still got my Richmond tip. I must have not save that tip, but I swapped to Port Adelaide also, I thought. And yeah, still got it feels like I've cheated here because I thought I'd changed to Port and I was adamant I tipped Port, but well, good for me on the tipping. So Richmond got up, which is a tick for me in the system, but yeah, I did go Port. So I'll talk about it from that sort of perspective where, the last 4 weeks or so they've come up against the top sides and they've got close. They've run them close and just sort of run out of petrol tickets. Haven't been able to get over the line, and I think that was really sort of showed in this game. They were sort of done, and Richmond had a lot more to play for and put them to the sword, even without Grimes. Interesting win-loss record between these two teams at Adelaide Oval. It's been win-loss, 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 win-loss. So got to remember that for next year when these two teams play at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide are due for a win. North against Sydney. Tip Sydney, they got up in the sort of expected result. North were admirable. They fought, they challenged, but just skill errors coming down their back 50. They just need some good ball users. Cunnington came through the VFL, and so I reckon they'll plug him back in. They were a much better side last year when Cunnington played. He's a bit of a barometer for them, on-field leader. So maybe they get up for Cunnington coming back into the team next week. I imagine they'll just bring him straight back in. Sydney, they just roll on. They've just, been really good in the last sort of, since the bye, I think they've really put on a pretty decent run. And it'll be a good game against Collingwood next week. I think they're the sort of team that'll, get up and about for it. But I think Collingwood are used to teams trying to bring their best to knock or end the streak. And I think historically they've got a decent record against Sydney. I don't know what it's been in recent times, but I do remember a lot of sort of wins by the Pies over in New South Wales. We then had Brisbane against Carlton at the Gabba, which looked like it was going to be the routine home slaughtering where Brisbane were up by 60 points or something. 60, 50? It was like 80 to 30 or something like that when I was checking the score. And every time I sort of flicked on, it was just Carlton blokes handballing it to another guy under pressure who was getting tackled. And Brisbane looked on. I thought maybe they'll have a bit of a second half fade out, a bit like they did last week against the Tigers. But third quarter got through sort of no issues, and then Carlton really sort of fired up in that last quarter and kicked 6 goals in a row. And you could see, there was a bit of panic. And then Brisbane just settled the game down. McStay took mark sort of in the goal square, iced the game, ended up getting up by 28 points. So solid, but you still worry a little bit about Brisbane's ability to shut down momentum. It's like they always want to just try score 120 odd points, and like they scored 114 in this game, so it paid off. But that was all their downfall last week against Richmond. Is like they would just keep wanting to play this like basketball style, like you have a go, we have a go. When they've got a decent lead, just slow the game down. Just take a few uncontested marks. And they've got the ball users in their team to actually chip the ball around. It's not like they can only play this fast style. That's the only type of players they've got on their list. So get a bit of energy back in the legs and just settle it down. It's sort of like no one takes charge on the field and goes, oh, hang on, boys. They've kicked 3 in a row here. Maybe we should just try and get our hands on it, take some steam out of the game for 5 minutes. If no one scores for 5 minutes, that's cool. And then, just make it a bit more of an arm wrestle. They don't seem to be able to do that very well when teams get a run on against them. And then the last game, West Coast against Adelaide. I really thought West Coast would get up for this one. And there were stages there where they were winning. They were very close. JK kicked 8. And I think there was one where it wasn't directly in front, but it was probably his easiest shot of the day for 9 goals. That would have evened the score up, or they would have been down by 1 point. And he thought if he got that, maybe they'd run over the top of Adelaide. But Darcy Fogarty in that last quarter was sensational. And I think it's just one of those things about key forwards. They can take a little bit to come on. And I know a lot of people were sort of getting into Fogarty over the last couple of years. But you still got to remember, like, key forwards can take 4 or 5 years to really mature into their body, be able to take contested marks. I think in his case, he's always been a really good finisher. He's got a long leg on him, so he's really dangerous as long as he can just take the mark, go back, have a shot. So I definitely think they've got a good forward there and someone to sort of build the team around. I do think you need a decent key forward when you're going through this rebuilding phase. And that's something I sort of get excited about with Freo over the next couple of years is we've got guys like Jai Amos and Tracy who we still need to get a few games into them, so we could have a bit of a flat year or two until they get a few more games. But yeah, I think the evidence is fairly clear that key forwards can take a little bit longer. They don't just necessarily burst onto the scene, and it's been, I think, beneficial for Taylor Walker to rediscover a bit of form and take a bit of pressure off Fogarty. So then you can have games like this where Walker's pretty much dominated by Barras, didn't have much of an impact on this game, and you've got a second banana to come in and help you get the win. So hopefully for the Crows, they still take some action on the whole camp stuff that's been going on. But in terms of their sort of on-field performance, they have been a bit flat result-wise the sort of last couple of months. So to start banking up a couple of wins is good for them. And they play North next week, so it could be 3 in a row for them. It'll be a good sort of finish for the year. Anyway, I got 5 out of 9. I tipped against my boys. I've done that 3 times this year, and they've won every time I've tipped against them. So maybe I need to do that more consistently. I tipped Melbourne, Pies got up. I tipped Bombers and Giants got up, and I tipped West Coast. So those were my 4 incorrect tips. You could say technically it was 5 because I did think I tipped Port Adelaide. Let me know how you went, and I'll see you all later in the week for my preview video. Thanks, and if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. See you all later. Bye.